on Highland. His family was in the apartment building in the recession. He, the son, went into the residential home business.
All right, Brandon, you're all set.
Thank you, sir.
And the one
Modern.
from Modern.
Oh, Mr. Kelly.
This is great.
I had.
All right, I'm gonna go first.
So I've got the analysis so we can, and then we're hoping that the ones on we're contemporary. They didn't love, they found one that they love. It's not one of ours.
Yeah, you can. Wait just one second. Can you get to the flat mess?
You want me to go there first?
How are you doing? Where?
And then they said, you know, that's the one
Yeah, it's been fun.
No, you're not. No, I'm just trying to find out what.
It's not a sweet spot, and so it's this whole more pretty grassroots, and it's the farmers markets, and so that is hopefully we're those who are doing it. So I think we have. Yeah.
Because I know we're talking about land now. A lot about land, which is good. That's impression I'm learning for myself.
I was gonna read this out where.
No, you were just and we did last week and we had.
We'll teach you everything you need to know. It'll check it out.
Why do you guys do that?
Yeah, we want to help us. There are things that you guys can benefit from. This lifestyle.
Okay, let's take a seat. Let's get started if we can. Hello, Ms. Mullins. How are you doing today? Good, good, good. We have a lot of information we're covering today, and so I want to get started as quickly as possible. I have a brief 2-minute commercial and let Star introduce a guest.
My friend Joey Romano, he also has a company called Oracle Sun, she's going to tell you about the energy.
Thanks, sir. So we've got a new solar energy company called Local Sun. Part of why we're talking to you is most people, when they move into a new place, that's when they switch their meters. And so our program is very different than what's out there. We go around and build solar farms locally in the community. Our first project's a 1.5 megawatt solar farm in Sealy, which is about 300 homes worth of power. So for anybody in Houston that wants to buy solar electricity without having to put panels on their roof, they can buy that electricity from us. And so it operates just like them owning those panels in our farm. They get a fixed rate from that panel for as long as they want to participate. And then we partnered with a retail provider called NP2 Energy that manages Rice University, SMU, very well-known institutional retail provider that manages all the power for the times when we can't produce, when it's cloudy at night. So you get this package where you're getting solar wrapped into a simple electricity plan that we hope will be easy to appeal to Houstonians who are interested in solar power. So what I've done is I've brought some flyers and a couple of little magnets. Again, the idea for us is we're trying to be out there in the community. We're a very grassroots organization, so if you see opportunities where we can help you guys participate in any way, whether that's co-sponsoring things, if your customers sign up, we want to incentivize you guys and provide some give back to your work in getting us out there in front of these customers who might be interested in this. So that's really the idea here is a way to spread the word on what we're trying to do. So Star, I really appreciate it.
How much property is required to produce that much?
So our farm in Sealy is 12 acres.
Oh.
Solar utility scale, this would be very small for that. So you don't see a lot of what we're doing. We're the only people in Houston doing this. It's the largest solar array in the city, so it's pretty unique to Houston, but 12 acres is.
How do you get wind energy in the?
So we are probably, depending on when you last switch, we're probably pretty comparable to Green Mountain's current plans. We're probably about $10 more a month than than just non-renewable plans. The difference is renewable plans are all credit-based. So like the Green Mountains of the world, you're buying wholesale power plus what's called a renewable energy credit that's generated from a wind farm in West Texas. So you're not actually buying the energy, you're buying the credit. With ours, you're actually buying electricity that's produced locally on the Houston grid. So you're both buying the credits that we generate and the actual electricity. So it's just like generating the power on your roof. So a little different than the wind turbine.
So since you're locking in a price now, like for whatever, 40, whatever years, is it going to be cost effective to break a contract to?
I would say if you're under a contract, just wait. I mean, like I said, we have no cancellation fee, it's not gonna go up with us, so I would say save the
So your
100.
rate's not going to go up?
The portion from our solar farm won't go up.
Okay.
I can't control kind of the wholesale that we blend when we don't produce, so that's the only, risk that you would have.
You said you currently can have capacity for about 300 homes. What percentage of that capacity is already taken? And then once you reach 100%, you're fully subscribed for capacity.
They're adding more solar.
We're adding more solar farms, the idea. Right now, we're probably about 15% subscribed through residential. And to put it into perspective, one big commercial, one grocery store would take the whole farm.
Sure.
But we are really focused on residential because I feel that Houstonians, solar hasn't taken shape here, and I think there are barriers. Houstonians move more frequently probably than other cities. This is a simple way to do it. And again, we want people to feel like they are owners in this project, operating much like a co-op, we'll say, for energy. We have no interest in making any money retailing electricity. We want to develop new projects and share the benefits with our customers.
So what kind of land are you looking for to develop more?
Well, see,
There you go, Ian, there you go, Ian.
I'm
It's
curious.
a good area because there's a lot of infrastructure there. There's a lot of load in the area. So we're right off of I-10, off of Highway 36. There's a huge Walmart distribution center on the end of our roads. We have really good power lines that are, our original hope was to go in and find schools and whatnot and do it on their property more locally in the city. It just made a lot more sense to do this out in the field, out there, much more efficiency. At that scale, we're building probably 60% less than what it would cost to put it on a big roof. So 12, anywhere from 12 to 100 acres out in Sealy connected to a power line. So what we're after. Well,
There's more information here.
Yeah, thank you guys for the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to cover a lot of information. I'm trying not to get you lost here. First of all, I want to thank those that participated in the historic district meeting that we had last Tuesday. When was it? Tuesday? Last Tuesday afternoon. It was great. I thought there was very good information. It was great participation with the Realtor World. It was nice to have Robin Nick, the owner of Heritage, was there, and Ed Wolf was there, and Harold Tooth was there. A wide variety of realtors. I thought it was great participation, great information there. I mean, I think it's constantly evolving, but for those of you who attended, thank you for that. If you didn't attend, ask us what happened. I thought it was fine. I want to remind you tonight is the first meeting of these design guidelines, especially if you are in the Heights area, Heights East, West, and South, and in Woodland Heights, and in the Old Sixth Ward, and in Freeland. This is the first of in North Hill, the first of these design guideline meetings, where people who live there will have input into the design guidelines. You got to be realistic about how this is going to work, though. You have an ordinance, so the design guidelines can't be in contrast to the ordinance. So the design guidelines inherently are going to be more restrictive than the ordinance. If the ordinance is already dictating scale and shape, then the design guidelines can be more restrictive. They can't be less restrictive than the ordinance. The biggest issue that I see with this whole thing is what you could have is a larger context area, okay? Where the guidelines doesn't say automatically that the context area has to be the block face to the left or the right. We talked about this before. If you're in the 400 block of Harvard and there's a bungalow, the only context area currently that they're using is the 400 block of Harvard. They're not using the 900 block of Harvard. So it's confusing to the consumer when they drive around the Heights and they see people buy these bungalows and do these things over here to them, where they see new construction, and they think because they did it the 900 block of Harvard, you can do it the 400 block of Harvard. It ain't so. Unless in the design guidelines, we say the context area should be larger. And that's gonna have to be homeowner driven. The comments from the homeowners in Heights South are going to have to say that. And if they don't say it, it's gonna be the more restrictive, just the block face. But this is the greatest opportunity, I think, for homeowners to have input into what it is that they want. If they want it more restricted, it be more restricted. If they want it less restrictive, here you go. We're gonna have these meetings, now, we're gonna have another one. We're trying to avoid the Christmas time, but we're under a deadline. The planning department and the historic department are under an inherent deadline that we put in place during the last administration. I was very instrumental in getting that in place. I do not want to linger here with no design guidelines forever. So by ordinance, these things have to be adopted by February 1, or there's a consequence. I think there'll be a small delay. I don't see how they can get it done by February 1. We do not want homeowners submitting their opinions on Christmas Day. So we're gonna have to get the information out in October, November, and people will have a period of time in January to make some final determinations of what's happening in their particular district. So these design guidelines are very important, and I don't think they're gonna be modified anytime in the near future. So when it comes into play, you're going to talk about staying in play for 5 to 10 years before there's major modifications to the design guidelines. So I encourage you to go. Kathleen, will you please put out another email one more time to the agents that they could forward to their homeowners if they have, want input into the design guideline process. Not from responsible historic preservation, but just from us, from you or me. So we're going to put that back out to you and let you send that out to your clients. Questions about the design guideline meetings?
Where do you park?
It's at the United Way, right?
Yes.
There's a big parking lot to the right. If you're almost hopping on Memorial Drive or whatever, at the southern section, there's a huge parking lot at the United Way, 55 block.
So is it really just for our area, or is it also for downtown and?
These meetings today are currently just for the individual districts. That there will be one for everyone. There will be a Market Square one. There will be an Avondale one. But the ones that we're working on now are the ones for Heights East, South, and West, Woodland Heights, Norville Heights, Freeland, and the old 6th Ward. There are the most comparable houses, so you can kind of have some generic context and then break into these little meetings that we're having and have the Heights South people sit at a table and the Heights West people sit at a table and they talk about what's going on.
So going forward, the Montrose area districts probably will do the same thing the Heights area districts are doing. They're grouping those together. So right now it's just Heights, but I think Montrose will.
Yeah, and Market Square will be updated also.
So are they actually gonna listen to the
Yes,
homeowners? Or are they just gonna say, we're listening to you, and then we're gonna do exactly what we
It is based
want?
by the comments that are both given verbally and submitted online. There's a process. I serve on the committee that's overseeing the fairness. I represent the mayor's office. They're representatives of the architects group, the builders group. One representative from each historic district serves on an advisory committee to say, was there fair input into the process? And so we're looking at the timeline, and we're looking at any comment that's given verbally is written down, or if you submit it on the website, is weighed. So the more comments that you have, they're weighted. But same thing, if there are 500 homes in Heights South and 20 people want it to be restricted and 14 people want it to be less restricted, the 20 people are going to win. You understand how it works? It's almost like an election. And we've discussed how much participation do you have to have for the threshold, but they're clearly just looking who's responding. So if the extremists who want very restrictive deals are the only one that respond, then they are going to be successful in their endeavor. If people, you're going to have to follow the ordinance. I mean, if you want input, you're going to have to provide input. You have to write, you have to email, or you have to deal. We have all the notes from every meeting that they've had which are added into it. But I will be honest with you, there are 20 or 30 people that dictate what happens to the 15 homeowners, 1,500 homeowners in Heights East, West, and South. There's not that great participation. North Hill is fairly consistent on the comments. You don't get a lot of extreme one way or the other. You know, they have a very pretty good set of deed restrictions and a consistent type of house or whatever. So I don't see much conflict in North Hill. And I don't see any conflict in Freeland. It's a little more cumbersome in Woodland Heights because, you know, you have some 75-foot wide lots, you know, but it's fairly consistent in Woodland Heights. Where you don't have is a very good idea of what's happening in Heights East, West, and South, because it's just not clear. The average person who drives by thinks this is an old house that's been remodeled, remember? Every day people come at me on a beautiful job remodeling this house. This is a brand new construction I could not have built in Heights East today. Would not be able to get that balcony on the front. I would not be able to build this knockoff. It is not. I would not be able to get this approved.
Right. So how is this gonna affect Kathleen's lawsuit?
I don't want to even go there. Let's just talk about design guidelines, which the meeting's tonight. I don't know anything about the lawsuit.
Well, I mean, it's relevant information to discuss if you went to the meeting tonight, right?
No, I don't know that it's
No, I think we're gonna keep those separate.
They're just separate issues.
You will see more information about the lawsuit this fall too, so.
Right. But I mean, it's about the elimination of historic districts because.
Well, they're not talking about the elimination of historic districts tonight. We're talking about design guidelines.
Yeah. Well, there's no need to talk about.
And let's pretend if the lawsuit's successful, it's only Heights East, West, and South. We still have Freeland and North Hill and Woodland Heights and all these other, you know, districts. So I mean, I don't want to get bogged down into the lawsuit issue.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this is your chance to have, because even if the lawsuit's, I mean, there's lots of outcomes. The lawsuit might be a revote, might be reduction of size. I mean, any of those things still probably mean a historic district is in play.
Right. But I mean, for a lot of the homeowners, all of these issues were done after the homeowners purchased their own property.
What's your question?
I bought a lot in 1989.
But it doesn't matter if you bought a lot in Sealy, if the Houston annexes Sealy, now you have to follow the rules of the city of Houston.
Right.
The city annexes property all the time. So I mean, the rules change, historic districts change. I mean, bus routes change. I mean, so I don't know how to answer your question. Doesn't matter what happened there. There was a process, and the process was that you had a historic district. Just like you could have minimum lot size or minimum build line or new deed restrictions. Any of those things can occur after you purchase a property.
Well, like you said, they only become more restrictive, not less restrictive.
Depends on what people say. I mean, you know, I don't want to get bogged down. Design guideline meetings tonight.
What time is it?
6:30. 6:08. Okay. The surveys that we talked about last week are great. About 25 people have filled out the survey. In my world, that's pretty good response. Some people emailed me that they just felt like they weren't here enough to even answer the survey. So I got several of those. So let's say that that's 5 people. So we're about halfway there of the number of surveys that I would like. If you haven't filled out the survey, and I have not read one of the surveys yet. I'll be honest with you. Until we get to the end, I'm not even going to start reading them. So I would like greater participation. If you haven't yet filled out your survey, please do so. If you don't know how to fill out the survey, please get with Erin. He can send you the link one more time. But we really want this input back from the agents regarding the survey. So, okay, I want to talk about you selling a property today or you representing a buyer today, and things you just kind of generally need to know that are not necessarily apparent to all of you. A lot of this about the Heights because it's more complicated than some of the others, but the same thing applies throughout the city. Okay? We're going to start kind of with, in general, and we can talk about specific lots and blocks and addresses all that you want, but just in general, I'm going to start with my client wants to buy 9142 Lane. Okay? Randomly pick the deal, it's not my listing, okay? And there's not, it's an estate, so you just in general don't know that much. It's an agent who doesn't know anything about the Heights, who's listed it. They don't know what size it is for sure. They really don't know anything about it. What is it that you should know? So there's a couple of things I don't think that we've done well of explaining to you. So if you take 9142 Lane, which is kind of a weird deal or whatever, is 914 two-lane, does it have any deed restrictions or not? Just general, does it have a deed restriction or not? So the easiest way to figure out, because that's in the heights, and it gets very confusing in the heights. We've talked about this a time or two before. If you got a title commitment for any property in the heights, okay, it would pop up these recording numbers of some deed restrictions, okay? And they, so you would have a normal lot and block, and you would run the little tile deal, and it would pop up with these recording numbers of deed restrictions. Let me be clear, doesn't mean that there's any deed restrictions. Right? The heights is a little odd in that we had some deed restrictions that had been put in place in the 90s. The original deed restrictions lapsed a long time ago, 30s, 40s, and 50s, all those things went away. And in the 90s, we started going back on a lot-by-lot basis, reinstituting deed restrictions. So in the title commitment, you automatically get these recording numbers of these things. And if the title company sends them to you, you have these recorded numbers of recorded things at the courthouse on every address in Houston Heights. And it is talking about the process to create deed restrictions. It's talking about the ballot for deed restrictions, and it's talking the recording of the vote for deed restrictions. So you automatically have these recorded numbers on every property, but that doesn't mean that there's any deed restrictions because you had to opt in. There's no blanket deed restrictions in the Heights. They're lot by lot basis. So you have these recorded numbers, but it does not yet mean that you have a deed restriction. So you could have opted in, and 2 doors down you could have opted in, and 1 block over you opted in, but it doesn't mean that you opted in. And on your title commitment, it would show all of these numbers, but it does not yet show the recorded number that you opted in. You have to have the final one that shows that you opted in, and that property then becomes deed restricted forever. So you would have to have the 4 recorded numbers, not the 3. I'm the vice president of deed restrictions. On a very regular basis, anyone that's refinancing, and certainly then they use a title company or a bank that's not familiar with the area, calls us and say, is this property deed restricted or not? And I have to explain this whole little process. In this process, there was a recording that the Heights Association can't tell you if you're deed restricted, but I can tell you if you're not deed restricted, okay? So the easiest way to go and tell right quick, though, is to go to the Heights Association website, HoustonHeights.org. Brandon's going to get us.
Oh, sorry.
We're kind of slow. And there's a list. What you would do is go to the Heights Association website, and you would click on committees, and you would go to land use, which gets very confusing. And then in land use, it talks about all of these issues dealing with land use, and it shows you the deed restriction documents, and then it shows you a list of the properties that are deed restricted. So here's the list, and it's by address, and you would go down to Tulane and the T's, and you'd see in the 900 block of Tulane that 914 is not one of those properties. So 914 never opted in. There's no deed restrictions on 914. At 930, there are deed restrictions. So it's going to say minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. It's going to establish the setbacks for the side. It's going to establish the setback for the garage. It's going to say no front loading garages, that the garage must be more than half the distance. So I mean, it's going to talk about the document that restricts the deals. Heights is a little odd. I know that that's hard to understand, but I mean, many of the properties are deed restricted, but probably about 25% of the properties are not deed restricted, which meant at 914 Tulane, I can open a livestock store. I can start selling chickens and chicken shit if I want to, right? There's nothing that stops me so long as I meet the building code of building whatever I want there. So 914 Tulane has no deed restrictions. Doesn't mean that 914 doesn't have any restrictions, because in the building code, you would assume that the city of Houston has imposed some restrictions. So we have a building code, chapter 42, which is going to naturally set some restrictions. It's going to say you have a 3-foot setback on the side, and it's going to say you have a setback at the front of 10 feet. It's going to establish certain deals. of which there are procedures to get over that. So if you have a 3-foot setback in the property code, and you want to build into that 3-foot setback, you can build in the 3-foot setback, unless there's a deed restriction. You can't violate the deed restriction. We're assuming no deed restriction. You can build on the property line, so long as you have a fire-rated wall, which basically means no windows. Glass blocks that are truly glass, not acrylic, are fire-rated, and sheet block that's greater than half inch becomes fire-rated also. So typically, you could have the garage set all the way on the property line and build all the way up, so long as your overhang didn't go into your neighbor, and so long as you address your drainage so that your water doesn't shed off your roof into your neighbor. So you can be on the line, flat roof, collect the water and shoot it back down onto your property, and it's just fine. So those things are established by the building code, chapter 42. So if there's no setbacks by deed restriction, there is naturally a setback into the building code, okay? Any questions about the, now, if you're in Woodland Heights over there, remember there's about 9 different sets of deed restrictions. Let's just go to Woodland Heights, just because that's another good
See, I
example.
have a question. So having a deed restriction in the heights means that building is 45 feet?
No, we're gonna cover that in just a second also. Okay, I'm not gonna get there. No, but I'm at 9142 Lane, and at 9142 Lane, I'll just let's go to Woodland Heights for just a second, just because I don't want to get confused. Most subdivisions, Montrose, Avondale, Sharpstown, Glenbrook Valley, Westbury, Willow Bend, Willow Moss, River Oaks, they all have deed restrictions. Almost all of them, you can Google and you can find the deed restrictions. I'm gonna go there. I promise I'm gonna go there. I just want you to know, in general, you can find almost all the deed restrictions on the website. If you know the legal description, you can generally find the deal. Woodland Heights gets a little confusing because they have, Woodland Heights is about 9 different subdivisions. There's Woodland Terrace, there's North Hill, which is confusing against North Hill and East North Hill. You gotta get to they just updated their website.
I haven't been here since I've done it.
You have been here?
I have not, no.
You can see all the different deed restrictions that they have, and it's confusing in Woodland Heights because you could be in the 900 block of Omar, and they have a setback, except your porch can
There's
go
nothing
8
showing up
feet
right
into the setback if it's open on 3 sides. So the traditional porch is open on the left and the front and the right. You
I needed to
If you have
go
your house, it's
here
only
to
open
land
2 sides.
use, but
That's not 3 sides, that's 2 sides. So you can encroach 8 feet into the build line
Oh, that's
in the 900
6 right
block
back
of
on. That
Omar,
doesn't go in.
but not the 1000 block of Omar. Because the 1000 block of
Okay, that's
Omar
what's
is in the
going on.
normal section versus the Woodland Terrace section, whatever. But if we can't get there, it's not that big a deal, but it doesn't have all the,
when it sends us back to the homepage every time. He's gonna try it over here and see if it's.
well, there's just a bunch of different deed restrictions going on in Woodland Heights. But we could pick Montrose or Avondale or something at the same time, but you ought to be able to find if it's something's deed restricted easily enough just by looking on the deal. That's not, I don't want to get hung up on deed restrictions too much. Just want you to know, to be able to go and look for them.
Yeah, their website's got bad information.
Okay, so let's go back to, I don't really know how big 9142 Lane is. The seller doesn't really know either. It's in the family for 40 years. They don't really know. Yeah, on HCAD, it's got a weird number on there. So you can go to the tax record. Here's 9142 Lane. It's telling me it's in Houston Heights. That's how I know to look for the deed restrictions, whether or not it's deed restricted or not. But I want to see how big this thing really is. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the plat map and I'm going to see why it's 5808 over here. Because that's a weird number. It's just a weird number. So we can click on the plat map and you can get to the plat and it will show you what's recorded at 9142 Lane, which is 44.33 by 132. So you can see it used to be something, probably 25, and at some point these neighbors sold a little bit and it's become 44.33 by 132. Now this is not a survey, but this is the last recorded plat that we have on record. So it's pretty accurate that this would be the lot description. Although this is wrong, I want to be clear. We do it all the time. I'm selling 523 East 23rd Street, and it showed that it was 50 by 100. and it was really only 49 by 100, and 1 foot makes a big difference when you're having to move a house a little bit, one way or the other. So the plat map can be wrong, but it's a pretty good indication. And you just need to be able to go to the plat map and see what they've got going on here. I don't know how to do it from Realist. I really don't know how to do that. I just know how to go to HCAD and click on the plat and find my way over here and tell me what's going on. So this is telling me there's an alley. I don't know if it's obstructed or not, but it's there. We really need to see how wide that alley is, but it doesn't really matter. But so here's Tulane, here's 44 1/3 by 132. You need to know how to get onto the plat map.
It's
Okay.
interesting that the next two are 44.
They're all kind of weird over here.
40, well, it's like they divided it up, those 3 lots.
These were infill lots. Remember, we start the heights in the late 1800s and you get 50 by 132s. You go into about 1920. We fill up this section over here. We get to the late 20s. We got a depression going on in the world. And so they're starting to subdivide these little lots. That's why we get a lot of 33s and a lot of 25s. We're having infill housing in the subdivision. This is the closeout section in Cinco Ranch, you know, just 85 years ago or whatever. So it starts getting a little odd. And then, of course, you can buy from your neighbor or something. So sometimes, you know, the lots could have been here and here, and then these guys went back and bought a lot and divided it between the 2 people. Or the same thing. Could have been a tree somewhere, and so Ethel went over here and sold to Rufus this 2 feet because they didn't want to mess with the tree that was over here. So it can get divided. They're not always going to be lovely 50 by 132s. It's nice if they are, but you can certainly see that there's ample sections that are not that way.
And people putting in driveways as their automobile needs change.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you know how to get to the plat. Okay. Now, same thing, we're going back to Yenny's question. If you're buy property in the Heights, and they explained this at the meeting last Tuesday, automatically, HCAD in the city of Houston went in and added to your title commitment the fact that you're in a historic district, okay? But you have to really be able to see if you're in that historic district or not. So the same thing, you go to the City of Houston website, and it's here showing you the historic districts, where they are. You kind of get a feel, but you can tell it's very odd over here. We're zigzagging around. So basically, you would say Heights South is south of 11th Street. But because they had to have so many contributing properties, they took non-contributing properties and they zigzagged around to get the deal. So if you're in Heights South and you're on Harvard, and there was a church there built in the 50s, that wasn't a contributing structure. So they zigzagged around Harvard so that you don't get in all of this section of here's Harvard here. That church went out. So that's why Bradley Smith able to build whatever he wants right here. Same thing. I think the Catholic Church is a little historic over there, but there's nothing stopping the Catholic Church from selling this to AshbyHighRise.com and then putting up a 74-story high-rise right here in the middle of the Heights. Nothing is stopping that. This church was not designated. This is not designated. Here's 945, they're not in the district. Here's these things not in the district. Here's this corner not in the district. You would think it would make sense, but they're zigzagging their way because they had to have a certain percentage of houses that were old, and when they couldn't get it by the define, at the end, they zigzag around to get a high concentration. So this is showing you the map of Heights South or whatever. I'm looking over here and I get to Tulane and I see that the 900 block of Tulane is not in the historic district. So I might say it on the title commitment that it's not in there. But if you are in there, it's going to show up on your title work, and you're going to have an automatic hold at the City of Houston Permitting Department. When you go and get a permit for something, they're going to automatically have a hold in the historic department for you to make sure that you're not violating. Even if you're replacing a water heater, the hold pops up, and they call over to historic and say, oh yeah, you can change your water heater, that's fine. But it automatically shows up on HCAT and at the City of Houston in the permitting department.
What if your water heater is broken?
You can, I mean, they're going to give you a release automatically because they don't regulate the water heater. They're going to want to make sure that your water heater wasn't on a little shed over here. Now you're taking off, or you're taking that shed and you're enlarging it 5 feet because your water heater is bigger today than it was 40 years ago. That's what they're checking to see if they're modifying the structure. You need to be able to look and see, go back to the basic map, Brendan, one more time. But you can see throughout Montrose, you can see that area over by Target. Here's the whole 6th Ward. Here's this section in the High First Ward. This is off of Center Street and Summer Street and Winter Street. There's a historic district here. This Germantown on the other side of me. Here's Woodland Heights. It's certainly not the whole area. It's zigzagging its way around Beauchamp and Teachshorn, and because they needed a high level of concentration. You need to know how to find these historic districts or not. And what does it mean?
You know, HAI.com, you can ping the house and then share the districts, the historical district, and it tells you if it is or not.
Perfect.
Wait, Jay had a question.
No, I was just saying HCAT's putting it on the HCAT page now.
That's right. It's pretty. It's easier.
But it's, I wouldn't trust it all.
I don't trust all those things either.
But it gives you a
It's very confusing, but it's gotten better. It's been 6 or 7 years, so it's gotten better. But it's just easy enough to take your clients who do not have access to HAR and show them where these websites are. This is, I'm trying to think like
Basically, in a historic district, there's nothing north of 20 in the Heights. There's nothing south of 11 on the other side of Yale in the Heights. So you can see it on that map. But if you're in the central part of the Heights, you need to check.
Yeah, I would just be able to check that. Okay, all right, so I want to go over something else. So here we're at 914 Tulane, but you don't really know what the setback is. We know chapter 42 set that at 10 feet, but we don't know if anything else is weird. So at the planning websites, you can just put in City of Houston Planning Department. It pops up your options to the right. And if you pop up to the right and you go to minimum lot size, this computer's slow, I guess. We're gonna get there, an interactive map again that kind of shows you what's going on. If you go to the top, just so they can see how to get there. You come to planning, you click on minimum lot size build lines, and it takes you to this page, which is kind of explaining what's going on. But there's this good map, and you pop down over here and just accept, and it's showing you where additions beyond the deed restrictions for minimum lot size and minimum build line. And when they make even an application, it automatically pops in over here because the rule is in play until the vote. So if a block makes minimum lot size application, you can't subdivide right quick. You have to wait until the planning commission acted. So you can put in any address, 914 Tulane, and let it pop up over here and see if it has any, instead of 10 feet, is it something weird? 22, 20, 15, or something. On this computer, it's relatively slow, but you can do this. You can put in the HCAD number. I did that on one for Jim yesterday. You can put in the address, or you can just go to the interactive map over time and click in there and see.
It's usually much quicker.
Do what?
I said it's usually much quicker.
What happens, you can see the red is minimum build line and minimum lot size. So the LS is lot size, which is establishing can you subdivide it. So if you're buying a 10,000 square foot lot, but the minimum lot size is 6,600, you can't subdivide that into anything. You can't do anything with the other 3,400 square feet. You could sell that to the neighbor to the left if they had something, but you can't subdivide that and build 2 houses on that tract.
Randy, before 25 West 23rd.
Let's just,
That's you. It's not
if you'll just let us click in on the map.
Well, it's doing a circle where.
Yeah, it's searching it.
It's still searching right now, right? Something different.
It's pretty interesting because you can see, especially in these areas, click out of this legend, because it's just easier to go away here. All right, so make sure you can see some, so here's this block right here. This is telling us right here, if you click on this, Harvard, it's telling us that the minimum build line in this block, go back where we were.
I'm trying. It's trying to catch up to itself.
Yeah.
weird as it can be.
Let's see.
You can just stay on the map, you don't have to put in an address, but if it gets it back there, it's fine. So in this block of Harvard, where we just were, this right here, so this is the 1500 block of Harvard. In the build line, it's 10 feet in the building code. In the deed restrictions, it's 20 feet, but it has a build line, so this build line on this block is 32 feet from the property line. 32 feet. It ain't 10, it ain't 20, it's 32 in this block, and you can tell where this block is. You can go to this block, and it's 22. They're weird because they were based on what is the prevailing build line when they went to do it. They don't just randomly say 32. They took a survey of what the setback was for all the houses and what it was when they made application, which could have been 2003 here, remember? So it's 22 feet in this block. Now you can tell also there's nothing going on here. I mean, that's fine. But let's click right here, see what's going on, because something's going on in the yellow. So here's an application that's pending. We actually just voted on this. So this is on Harvard. This is from 20th to 22nd Street or whatever. I think we already talked about this, where the minimum lot size is 6,600. We talked about this, so I don't want to confuse you. But here's how we went here. On this deal, the block face is Harvard, okay? The houses that face this way. But on 20th Street, these commercial buildings that were there face 20th Street. So when this application was approved, we cut out the two commercial properties automatically. So that's what happened because I was at the vote. And so the two properties there are not in it. They made application for the east side and the west side. So when it's approved over here, that little section is going to be cut out. And the commercial buildings on 20th Street do not have a minimum lot size, but all of these are at 6,600, 50 by 132. So if you have 75 feet by 132, which is 9,900, you cannot subdivide that property. You would have to have 13,200, you could subdivide into two. You cannot subdivide that because the minimum thing you can subdivide into is 6,600. Here's the only other thing, the little caveat. When you have land use in these deals, and it really applies more to Montrose, there's a single family house here. They wanted to tear down the house. Not in the historic district, you can tear down the house. But when the minimum lot size goes into play, it is a form of land use. You can only replace that with a single family house. So if you have a 8-unit apartment complex right here, if you tear that down, you can only build back a single family house. Now there's no deed restriction on that property, right? It doesn't say that it's single family residence because it's not deed restricted. But it is restricted in the minimum lot size and in the minimum lot size, it's automatically restricted to residential.
Even duplexes?
Even duplexes are then, I didn't know this either. I learned this myself. So when you have minimum, not the build line does not create the restriction.
Right.
But the minimum lot size does, the restriction is automatically reverted to single family residence. So these people, these commercial people, which this isn't in there anymore, wanted to buy this, tear down the house and put a parking lot for the commercial, and it is prohibited by ordinance. You do not have a parking lot where you had a single family house. You can rebuild a single family house, but you cannot build a duplex, not build an apartment complex. This is the first instance we've really had in the Heights that it impacted, but it's in Lexington. We're doing a lot of these in Montrose, and we have the minimum deal. So you have the minimum lot size, and the minimum lot size sometimes is 3,000. So you can go put, these units on there. But you can't go put an apartment complex. You can't go put a parking lot.
So that oversized lot that sold there on the east side of the street maybe last year, what, are they limited in what they can do?
Yes, they are. Single family.
You know what I'm talking about?
Even though that wasn't in play then, because this really just got adopted in the last month or whatever. it may, so it's not even kicked in yet, but it is kicked in, because it kicks in automatically when the application.
I don't, the council hasn't voted yet, they
But
will.
as long as it's gonna pass.
Have they already, I just assumed they were gonna tear down that house and put something.
Now, build a single family house.
You know,
If they had a permit already,
Yeah,
then if they had a permit already, they're grandfathered. If they went tonight, if they applied for the permit, the day this application was made, they're bound by the applicant, by the new
do you have
ordinance.
any idea if they did or not?
I do not, but you can give me the address, I can look that.
Could you build the world's smallest house and have a whole heck of a lot of
Sure you can.
yard that's kind of parking?
Well, I asked that question, not exactly that, but.
Pull out on the map just a little, let's just
Because
look at the bigger map. I don't
it's
want to
still
focus on the heights
single
too much.
And you
Is that a lot on 20,
Uh-huh,
where the duplex
I
is?
asked.
yes.
They can take 6,600 and split it in half and get 2 houses on it?
No, there's not, but they would.
You can take your 6,600 and split it in half? No, you cannot. You can't have anything less than, minimum is the minimum. The minimum you can have is 6,600 square feet.
Okay.
Here is the minimum build line and the, minimum lot size. The lot size is actually more like, you can see certainly we have a lot of activity over here, but we are getting a lot of activity, and I don't know, this is all of Lindale right here. So this is the northern section of Lindale, all has minimum lot size. It's the largest areas that we've been concentrating on. These are areas in the near north. So here's Lindale. This is the biggest block. The applications have been the biggest blocks. So you can apply, but you have to meet the minimum criteria also. So we just did this one and we had to zigzag around a little bit. We are bound by the block face though, the planning commission. If you have a block and it's 10 houses, we can't zigzag. You can only take out, if those houses faced 20th Street, then that block face can be modified because they truly face 20th Street. But you can't just zigzag a house. If that commercial building on Harvard had faced Harvard, it would not, by ordinance, you can't cut it out. You must take the block face of whatever truly the block is.
You're just saying zigzag.
Like these historic districts.
Sawtoothing or notching.
That's right.
Okay.
But they're not by ordinance supposed to include commercial anyway. And they do it all the
They do it all the
time.
time.
And there's a fight at planning about that regularly, because they don't want.
Montrose, you can see a lot of this going on. We get a lot of these townhouses, being built on Lexington in this section. So you see a lot of these areas in this upper Kirby section are definitely making applications every week. We're getting significant deals. So what you're seeing now more is McGregor and the 3rd Ward and the 1st Ward and the near north side and the east side. You're going to see so much of this over the next 4 years happening in areas that have not historically happened. Go make them out.
See those green blocks right there? That's me.
All this section is pretty good, and this is a great tool where there's overwhelming support. And so what you're seeing is sections of the city that have not really been developed that much before. This, here's downtown. This section over here. This section over here. These sections over here. These sections over here. All of this little section around here is. I think you're going to see massive amounts of community people going to put minimum lot size. I think you're going to see it. It's too successful over here. They do not want a pocket of houses that are all traditional one-story, single-family houses, and then all of a sudden townhouses start being built there. You're going to be very careful, and you need to know how to look this stuff up. If that particular lot and block has minimum lot size or minimum build line. You need to be able to know how to do this.
Can we get a link on like back agent to these different things? So
Aaron?
some of them,
Yep.
you have to
Sure.
keep, kind of going deeper and deeper.
So when in doubt, you of course could ask Rhonda or Kathleen or Brandon or myself, or you need to know how to go to this site and look for minimum lot size, minimum build line, deed restrictions, and a plat map. You need to know how to do those sort of things without asking for help. You can ask once, but you know. All right, questions about that? I want to make sure you
Do we have a
thoroughly
class on
understand.
that?
On what?
This is.
This is the class.
You're in the class.
Sorry,
Yeah, you missed the part. Yeah, you need to go find the house, find the historic districts, find the plat, find the deed restrictions, find the minimum build line, find the minimum lot size. You, a realtor who's licensed and a trained professional, need to know how to do this. Your client should not necessarily know how to do it. You are the trained professional, know how to do it. Yes, these are great questions.
So my, anyways, my client just made an offer on a home on Right. It's not in the historical district, but I do know that when I went to HCAD, it says it's 5,000 square feet, and it's giant, so it's not 5,000 square feet. Someone has built a fence way into probably the city
There's a
property.
flood district there, so the
Yeah.
Harris County Flood Control District took a lot of that property after the floods or whatever. And so HCAD might just have it what's owned by that person, but people may be using that property, but they can't build on it.
Okay, they can't, so they just need to find, they're gonna, do a lot of extensive renovation, so they were gonna.
We're already on Right-Wood, I'm very familiar with Right-Wood,
It's-
in the
it's-
1400 block or?
Yeah, it's the 2121, it's just down from those architectural places that you were selling for.
I'll get with you.
Yeah.
I'll get with you, but a lot of that little section is Harris County Flood Control District, bought that property, eminent domain, we cannot build back there.
And there's maps that you can see the floodway and the floodplain too.
Right.
Okay, any questions about these things? I wanna make sure you, Becky, you know how to look? Yeah, Becky has one, same thing, we look up the build line's 44 feet in the 400 block of West 23rd, which is just right over there, I mean, it's not a problem. 44 feet is where you can start your building. 44 feet, not 10, not 20, 44.
The 400 block of West 23rd.
Uh-huh.
So can they, since that alley is so huge, can they take the garage all the way back to the alley line?
You can, yeah, because they just care about the turning radius. So yeah, like you typically have a 15-foot alley. The building code says you need a 24-foot radius, so that's why the setback is 9 feet if you're coming from the alley. If you're coming from the street, you can put it back on the line also. So yes, if the alley is greater than 24 feet, you can build your garage on the alley, on the line, the property line.
The garage is currently over the property line, so it has to move.
That's right. Okay, questions about that?
So you're saying deed restriction, plot size, minimum lot size, and what the other one?
Minimum build line and historic districts. Need to be able to look up all those things. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to cover.
Oh, 1031 exchange.
Well, I mean, that's what I want to cover. So next, we have two more informational items for you today. First, Star is going to talk to us about her project in Acres Homes, Nolo Studios at Acres Homes. Just a moment. And then we have a presentation on 1031 exchanges, which are tax deferral opportunities. If you have a light property or many investors that want to, sell a house and reinvest the money and defer their taxes, so instead of paying capital gains tax of 20% or whatever it is they're paying, they can reinvest through a 1031 exchange and defer their taxes to a later time in life, and maybe they have a lower tax basis. We have people here today who are going to explain how that works and how it works. It works very easily. We do a fair number of 1031 exchanges, especially if people have duplexes or apartments or something, and they want to sell one and buy in another emerging area and defer their taxes. There's a process on how you do it. Some of those 1031s got their ass kicked in the recession. And so there used to be a large number of 1031 exchange companies that have declined. Commonwealth had a 1031 exchange. They lost $9 billion in their 1031 exchange. So they're no longer in the 1031 exchange business. But so you need a reputable company to make sure that they stay in business. If they survive the recession, they're probably going to do just fine. So first we're going to have Star, and then we're going to have Dominic's group talk about 1031 exchanges today.
Okay.
Star, there.
Okay, so I'm excited to tell you guys about a new project I'm working on, Nolo Studios at Acres Homes. I recently had this great privilege of working with Francois Deminil. And for those of you who don't know Francois, he is he's the heir of the Menil Collection in Houston. It's one of our great museums in Houston. It's easily compared with our Museum of Fine Arts and is known throughout the world. It's actually a pretty amazing museum. If you've never been there, you should go. But Francois, and I have been working on this project out at Acres Homes. And Acres Homes is, can you have the little map of Acres Homes?
Sure.
Okay. Acres Homes is north of 610 Loop, and it's over here like Tidwell, and I'll show you here. Okay, so here it is. So if you go up Shepherd, actually from 610 up to about Tidwell right here, that's about 3 miles. It takes me longer to get to West U from here than it does to get here. It takes me about 7 minutes to get here. And once you're out there, what you see is beautiful. You see pastures, you see little shacks of houses, and you see these giant McMansions. So it's kind of a mix of everything. And then you might even see a guy walking down the street with his horse. There's horses and chickens.
Chasing his
out
horse.
there.
I've had that happen. I'm chasing his horse. I had that happen.
So it's a very diverse landscape. And what's interesting about this area is that over the past about 12 years, there's been an artist movement out there. So there's a lot of famous artists even that are living out there right now. Terrell James is living out there, Ed Wilson, Carter Ernst. There's a whole section called Itchy Acres that you may have heard of. It's out there as well, where artists are moving to this area. And what's interesting about that is, well, first I want to read to you just this little part. But what's interesting about an artist movement to an area is that it creates development. Recently, the National Endowment for the Arts and the United States Conference of Mayors and American Architectural Foundation presented this concept called creative placemaking. And I'll read you the definition that the National Endowment for the Arts says. It says, in creative placemaking, partners from public, private, nonprofit, and community sectors strategically shape the physical and social character of a neighborhood, town, city, or region around arts and cultural activities. Creative placemaking animates public and private spaces, rejuvenates structures and streetscapes, improves local business viability and public safety, and brings diverse people together to celebrate, inspire, and to be inspired. It's interesting because, you know, one of the things that artists do over time is they are able to see, you know, an area where there's waste and turn it into art. They're able to see something, you know, if you think about collage, where they've taken scraps of paper and things and put it together in a way to create art. And what's interesting about this area to artists is that the landscape is beautiful. They don't care that it's rough around the edges. They don't care about any of those things because it's beautiful. And so this space that we're building is in the middle of a street called Mansfield, which is just near Tidwell and Shepherd, over there for Wheatley. Ella turns into Wheatley. So it's like if you put up Ella, it's right about there, about a quarter of a mile, not even a quarter of a mile down Mansfield. And what we're building are these studios that are both live workspaces. So you have an area, we have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedroom spaces. And they have a large work studio that has beautiful light in it with fluorescents, but they're made to look bright like daylight so that artists can work in these spaces. They have up lighting and down lighting. The space from here to here is about 22 feet tall. It's all concrete floors. And the top floors, if you have a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom, has wood upstairs. These spaces are open to all people. They're inspired by the creative community. They're inspired by artists. They started because 5 artists were looking for spaces out in Acres Homes. I had 5 people. They were all looking for art studios. And they were all looking for a space, like a lot, to build out there. And what transpired was this meeting with Francois. What happened is we realized that it was getting very expensive to build one house because you have to bring in the sewage out there, the electricity. Basically, it's just raw land. It's not like if you built on a block here in the Heights or something. Nothing has ever been on this land before. So it became easier, and I said to one of the artists that day, so what would be easier is if we could find a developer who has artist sensibilities, who would then create the space and sell it back to the artists. And so they liked that idea. The first person who came to mind was Francois Demeniel. He's a filmmaker. His parents are Dominique and Jean Demeniel, and he's an architect. And so, as it turned out, one of the artists says, "Oh, I work with him. I know him, and I can tell him to, come out." So we went out. He loved the idea. He loved that he was creating spaces for creative people. But what it's turned into now is a space that is meant to inspire people, not just artists, but all people. So you can have the space even if you're a CPA who would like to be inspired by her. So it's a wonderful opportunity. There are 14 homes. There's only one bedroom right now. There could be more one bedrooms. The one bedroom has a master bedroom, of course, so it's all one level. The two bedrooms have 2 bedrooms up, and then it has a living, kitchen, open area, and then a large studio attached to it. And I have floor plans on my website, which if you'll pull up some of the floor plans. And then we have a 3-bedroom where the master bedroom is on the first floor, and then 2 smaller bedrooms are on the top floor. And so here's kind of what it looks. Come back to that picture.
Mm-hmm.
We have saved so many of the trees out there. It's absolutely.
It's all pines.
Gorgeous. Well, there's not all pines, but there's a lot of pines out there. And so this is kind of what it looks like. It's very beautiful. The trees, there are a lot of big trees in the front. We've had to take out a lot of trees because they were scrub trees, but we're replacing them with, larger trees. There's going to be a gate around the space, but even the gate is going to have bamboo around it, so it's going to look green and beautiful. Maybe it'll have some bougainvillea. It's not going to say fence, it's going to look very natural. Even the driveways that we're required to have at the city, are required to have these things. You can't just have a gravel road. Are going to be sure grid, which is this grid where they put in the gravel, so it looks natural. Everything about this space is going to look very natural. So
what about schools?
So this is zoned to Aldine. It's probably not ideal for young families moving in, but it's not to say that it would be, they can. It's just that they're not going to get into the magnet schools in Houston. So, and then go back to the floor plans. So, okay. Yeah. This is kind of what the inside of the studio is going to look like. One of these large fluorescent lights, lots of natural light coming in. It has 2 large doors here, so you can allow for large pieces of equipment to come in, large pieces of art if you want.
Can you stand on the other
I'm
side?
sorry, sure, yeah. And, okay, so this is just the one bedroom here, and then living dining space combined. And we're calling this a great room because it could be a great room or a studio. Okay, go to the second one. It's kind of it from this side. They'll have metal roofs, and they'll have hardy plank siding, like thick hardy plank siding. If you've ever seen those places over on 26th Street, I think, 25th Street, those big white buildings.
West 25th.
West 25th. They're white. They're just very modern looking. That's a kind of an example of what it looks like. So here's the 2-bedroom. We've got 2 bedrooms here that share a bath. They're pretty small houses. They're not huge, but the wonderful thing about these houses that they have around them, they have lot sizes that are, between 5,500 and 7,500 square feet. Go back to the plans that show the square footage on each of them.
Is it like a beadboard or is it?
No, it's not beadboard. It's hardy plank.
Hardy plank.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hardy plank, but it's a wide hardy plank,
Okay.
and it's white, and they have metal roofs.
You mean like a 12-inch wood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hardy plank. So here you can see the 2 bedrooms have lot sizes of about 57, 41, 56. So the living area is just 1,773 square feet. They have a studio. Each one is a little bit different. The 3 bedrooms are about 550. The 2 bedrooms are about 430 square feet of studio space. The studio space can be used for lots of different things. They're not required to be an artist, so it could be that you have a singer, it could be that they use that space for a living space. We're in such an early phase of it right now that they couldn't even use, it's possible that if they wanted the living, dining, studio space together, that's even a possibility at this point.
So this is really the first phase.
Yeah, this is the first phase. Right now, what we've done is we've cleared the land. When I say clear it, we've just gotten scrubs, trees out of there. We've made room to where the foundations are going to be laid. You know, it's getting ready for the slabs to go down. So these will be on a slab.
No, but I mean, this first phase, you've actually bought the
No, this
original
is it.
phases, or
No, that's it. This is the whole site.
Yeah, so we bought the land.
How many acres?
It's on about 3 acres of land. But you get a lot of space around you, so it's not just like, you know, townhomes that are right next to each other. You have a lot of natural green space, a nice fence in the front. It's going to be very secure.
So you're on Mansfield? So
On
what are the lots in
Mansfield.
Mansfield selling for now?
Well, for a lot out there, you can buy, the average going rate for an acre is about 90,000 for a whole acre. If you buy from Paul Quinn to Tidwell, which is more desirable, it's about 125 to 130,000. It's over there.
Price points?
What else? Oh yeah, the 2 bedrooms are $350, and the 4 bedroom, the 2 bedrooms are $350, the 3 bedrooms are $450, and the 1 bedroom is $275. And we're starting to take reservations now. We have 2 of them reserved already. We have the 1 bedroom reserved, and we have this 3 bedroom reserved.
So the one bedroom is gone.
It's gone right now, but we're open to making another one. If somebody, we could change one of these into a 1 bedroom if somebody needed, if they sign on early.
And when do you expect them to be?
We're expecting the first phase of it to be ready, the first 5 of them to be ready at the end of April.
Where do you park? Where do you enter?
Yeah.
And
So can you enter, there's a gate here, so you would enter, sorry. No, you would enter here. There would be a gate here, and
this is the, what street is
Mansfield.
this is Mansfield. There would be a gate here. You would enter, you have a parking pad next to your house, and you could add on a garage or a carport or something like that. We're trying to keep the price down as low as possible. So we didn't include the garage or carport. That's something that could be added. And for an incentive for those people who are, the first 5 or so, we'll throw in something like a carport for you if you want that.
We have room for a garage.
Yeah, so you have do have room for a garage if you want to put a garage there.
Are these fee simple or HOAs?
This is an HOA, and the HOA is going to run about $2,200. We're still working on the details of the HOA, but it's about $2,200 for the whole year.
Which is the road maintenance and the water?
The road maintenance, not the water, it includes the trash pickup, the road maintenance, the common space.
Is it being organized? Like, does it have the services like sewer system?
Well, brand new.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
on property.
So it's an
So it's a
environmentally friendly,
No,
It's not much.
it's just an HOA.
it's an environmentally
It's-
friendly,
it's
not
city
gated
water.
community looking gated community.
It is a gated community,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's going to look very natural from the outside. You know, there are some properties that when you go up to it,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
appears like it's just a big gate. And we want it to look like it fits into the neighborhood. We're trying to be as responsible as we can, be a good neighbor. We have, on this side of us, we have a little house that looks like a little rundown shack, and they have horses in the back. And on this side of us, we have a McMansion. So it is a very diverse landscape. It's a, yeah, and you know, it's interesting, I have a presentation that I'm going to put together for tomorrow that just shows some of the artist studios that are already out there, and they're spectacular. There's these homes out there Some of them are really beautiful, very modern, very cool. And, you know, that whole area is going to be changing very quickly. And it would be interesting to sometimes do a little tour out there, just to kind of show you what's out there and so you can see.
Was that area in the flood zone? No.
No, this is not the flood zone. Their flood zone is closer towards TC Jester. When you get towards TC Jester, you are in the flood zone, but this is not.
So the HOA really helps to update the public building.
Mm-hmm. No, this is not a public building.
No, this is an example of one unit.
Oh.
This unit isn't there, it's just an example. of
Oh.
one. It maintains the gate and the road and the trash collection.
Mhm.
So what does it mean to reserve it? What's the cost?
So to reserve it right now, they need to put 1% down for earnest money. And then once they start building, it's going to be a full 10%.
What are they expecting?
The building's going to start in December.
Is
Or
there a
actually,
pre-sale
hopefully
thing?
The pre-sale incentive is some sort of carport. So the first five have an incentive,
Okay.
you know, which is about, you know, a $10,000 or $12,000 issue. There'll be architectural carports.
Yeah, carports or a private fence. There could be a private fence. If you have a dog or something, you really desire a private fence, there's like a little hog wire fence that we can put up, you know, that would with it.
Oh.
And if they wanted a garage, you'll, at some point in time, we'll have a price point.
Yes.
Yes, we are working on that right now,
Yeah.
getting the prices for that.
Excellent.
Yeah, any other
I
questions?
just wanted you to know about this project. It's gonna be written out in a bunch. It's, you know, famous architect and famous family.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Okay, one other quick note too, I am speaking at a panel tomorrow, which is open to realtors. It's a realtor panel. We need to send out the information because it costs money to go to this thing. It's like $25. This panel is just designed to talk about builders for realtors. How do you attract a builder? How do you work with the builder? How do you interact with the builder? How do you set expectations with the builder? It's all about realtors and builders. And there's just 3 people on this panel. It's a luncheon thing, whatever. We'll send you the information if you want to go. I'm sure it's $25 or something like that. There are big builders like Darling Home or something. I'm kind of the realtor representative of how do you work with builders, how do you get builders, sort of thing. We'll send that out to you. Forgot to say about that. Okay, Mr. Tom, come talk to us. We have someone else speaking also on 10:30.
Well, he's supposed to be here, but,
if not, you can make it up.
I'll make it up.
There you go.
Well, the other person that was supposed to be here is the representative from Inland Capital, and they're the company that are supplying the building, the back end of it. So I'm Tom Stevens, and I'm a financial advisor, business consultant. And I work through a brokerage firm called First Allied. And as Bill said earlier, there were some of these happening in the past. And if you are not good at what you do, you potentially could have a problem. You could not be in business, lose some money. The reason I mentioned First Allied is it's a very large firm, and they only allow us to be involved with and to facilitate and sell certain products. And they've done their due diligence, and they're very high in this company. In the capital, they're the largest this type of company in the country. So to just back up and say, how many people are familiar with 1031 exchanges? Okay, and are you all involved in commercial investment or land sales or that sort of?
We'll sell anything, Tom. We're not
Okay, all right. Generally, here's how it works. Well, let me back up and ask this. In the commercial real estate space today, are prices going up, prices going down? Can you get a better deal today than you could a couple of years ago? I'm just curious, because I don't know the answer to that. Down, prices are down.
Yes.
I
agree with that.
Okay, and that's what I thought, and the reason I asked that question is, if you own a property today and you want to sell it and exchange it for something better, it's gonna be a cheaper price. The differential between what you sell that property for and
The tax you save.
well, it is gonna, there's going to be a difference between, what you sell it for and we pay for it. And if you have a large amount of difference, then you're gonna have to pay tax, or you're gonna find something else to do with that money. You're gonna buy another property, or you are going to potentially use this kind of a service. And let me see if I can give a better example. If I've got a $5 million property and I want to, I have my $4.5 million property, I'm gonna sell that. There's a $500,000 in difference that I might have to pay taxes on just to get a better building at a cheaper price. So with this type of a product, it, maybe I can explain this better. Again, I'm not the expert, I'm the middle guy, but I'm left here trying to do this on the fly, so I do understand. I just didn't have a presentation ready for this. On the inland capital side, what they do is go out and get a line of credit, and they buy commercial buildings. And their buildings are everything from normal commercial business buildings, shopping centers, hospitals, apartments, rental properties, and so any kind of commercial property. They will go out and buy a package of this, and then they sell shares into this. And the vehicle they use is called the Delaware Statutory Trust, or DST. So, getting back to the person that has this $500,000 excess capital that they're either going to be taxed on or they want to do something with, you can buy shares in a DST. And the trusts are generally set up to run 5 to 7 years. And so your money is going to be tied up, but during that period, you are going to get a dividend. Typically right now, the dividend is 5% a year. You're also at the end of that trust, when that trust terminates, you also have the capability to share in the appreciation of that package of commercial properties that that's in that package. So, and at the end of that period, then you have the option of either, once again, rolling that 1031 into another DST, or you can take that and roll it into another property that you might want to buy. And it can, basically, you can defer those taxes.
In your first example, you had a guy who was selling a $5 million property and he had excess capital buying something cheaper. But what if you have somebody who owns a duplex in Montrose? It's a $600,000. Maybe this is your guy. No,
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's a $600,000 property, and they don't want to buy another property. Can they go straight directly to DST? And then where does the, what happens with the income from the dividend?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like, so you're getting a 5% dividend, is that rolled into the capital gains that you pay when you're out of the DST, or is that just your regular income?
That's your regular
Yeah,
dividend,
just
and
whatever
that's ordinary income, yes.
Good.
And can that dividend actually go down while you're locked into it?
Yes, there's nothing guaranteed. They structure this based on the rentals that they're receiving, or the income they're receiving from mortgages, or the rentals from the leasing of the buildings. And so, of course, when you start off, they've got a picture and they know what it looks like today. Could somebody go out of business in one of these, one of the properties? Yes. Could there be a problem? Yes. But generally, they don't want to be in that position either, because it's going to make them look bad.
I'm not that familiar with 1031 exchanges, but what I understand is that, and I think for the most part, all of us probably work in residential more than commercial. So if we have, so I had clients when I sold the Heights Theater, which is commercial property. So he then took that money, because as I understand it, if you make too much of a gain from that, then you have capital gains taxes, right? So you need to then buy another property to put, you have to offset that. You have to buy another property, keep from paying this capital gains taxes. But what you're saying is that if they don't want to buy property to offset that, they could put it into this
Yes.
program.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they can put it into
Yes,
this trust, and then from that, their money, they don't have to pay those capital gains taxes, and they're
Well,
Until
okay, they're deferred until
They're
that
deferred.
trust ends.
7 years.
At the end of that, at the end of the trust, then they have the opportunity to do something with they're gonna get that money back.
okay.
So they can either take that money and roll it into the next DST,
Okay.
or they can take that money and buy another property.
And why is it better, I mean, so the advantage of doing this over buying a house, I mean, 'cause I'd rather sell a house to them, but, what is the advantage? Just the time that you get with doing something like this, and also some interest,
Your
right?
taxes are deferred and
Your
you get
taxes
the
are
dividends.
Okay,
And you're getting
So
dividends.
you get money on your money.
And the properties are hopefully appreciating within the trust.
Because if he buys another property, then while that property may appreciate,
You're not making.
because he's got a great realtor, that property may appreciate, and unless it's rental property or something, and he's getting some income in, he's not really making any, he or she or not really making anything. So they would get the dividend off of that money while it's sitting in there with the deferred taxes.
okay, and then is there a minimum, what's the
No.
amount of
What about aging landlords who are tired of the day-to-day? Then they can sell their property and go into
You go into
DST.
this.
Right. We start, like, if it's a $5 million property, just hypothetically, if there's a 15% capital gain, that's $450,000 in taxes that he would have to pay. He gets to defer the 450 and apply it toward the next property he's buying, and he pays no taxes.
And so at the end of this 5 or 7 years, the money that you receive out is the same amount as you put in, or does it ever?
Well, hopefully it's an appreciated amount,
It's
because
an appreciated.
are
You
you,
get to
are you all
enjoy the
familiar with
appreciation.
a REIT, a real estate investment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very similar to a REIT.
But you get the dividends, do you get the dividends like on a quarterly, whatever?
Yes.
But then your investment is also appreciated in addition
Yes.
to the dividends?
Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so this is a place
That's the goal.
to defer your taxes, to park your money. Your money is, you're going to get dividends, and the property's appreciating, so.
Yeah, and there's a time window from the time you sell it until you buy the
Yes.
next property.
Yes.
There is a time window.
1 year.
No,
But it's
It's
very
18
short.
months.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, my expert's not here.
Okay.
Somewhere, but there's a time limit.
There is.
No, if we send somebody there, do we get a percentage?
Well, actually, I'm trying to show you a service. In order to sell these things, you have to be licensed security broker. And that's how I got involved in this. And I just get a little piece of it, but really what I'm trying to bring to the table here is a potential service that you can offer your clients. And if they have a big tax savings, then they're gonna like you.
Yeah.
right. But there's a fee and charge, assessed for the 1031 exchange, because while the money's being held by your company.
Well, it's not my company.
Yeah, or by the 1031 exchange, they charge a fee for that. And it's based upon the size of the.
Well, again, if you
Or
think of
is
it as a real
assessed by the
estate,
state?
if you think of it as a real estate investment trust, it's a very similar operation. So they're gonna take their fees out, and after their fees, they're gonna pay this dividend.
Right.
What happens at the end of 5 or 7 years? Does the property get sold, or is it ongoing and people just enter and leave in 5 and 7 year segments? And what happens if the
The
property?
trust is a finite vehicle. So at the end of the trust period, those properties are sold. And this company is creating trust constantly because there's a huge demand for this product. What they told me was within 60 days of announcing a trust, it's pretty much sold. And so they're on to the next and the next and the next. So this is a constant rolling of these trusts and the properties.
What happens if it actually loses an
No, it's an investment, so you could potentially lose some money.
It's like anything we do in real estate.
There's no guarantee.
You can sell a house to somebody and we hope it will appreciate, but if 2008 happens, it might not, you know.
But it's what they purchased in the beginning for the trust, it stays like that. They don't sell things that are doing poorly and put in a better one. It's just what it is. Okay.
I have a financial advisor question that I think that's related. What do we do about protecting ourselves from capital gains on our residential property? You know, for people who own property in the Heights and Montrose, it's really easy to exceed 250,000 in gains from when you bought it. And if you're single, you know, that can be a, you know.
So you're saying that
Like when
you bought a house for $100,000 and you're selling it now for
exactly.
$500,000
A lot of
or
people in
something.
Montrose in my neighborhood bought their houses for under 200, and now those houses are worth more than 600. So what's a way to guard against that capital gains bite? Marry somebody gardener?
Buy a bigger.
Reinvest in another house.
I know, but what do you get where these people get too fond of their houses? It's a bad thing, you know?
Well, I mean, that's just why the tax structure is the way it is. They want you to take that money and buy another house. If you're gonna take it and not, then you're pretty much stuck paying taxes on it.
Yeah.
You're saying, I'm just gonna take it and put it in my pocket or put it in the bank. So,
this prevents,
I'm sorry.
so this prevents that from happening.
Well, no, this is only for commercial properties. though.
Yeah, it's not residential. When I say commercial, it's truly commercial building, shopping
Could be
center,
fourplex
that sort
or
of thing.
threeplex.
It could be investment property, or it could be raw land. It could be raw land also.
No, I just asked Tom because I know that's a thing in our lives, you know, but.
Well, you have to keep very good tax records. I mean, every dime, every dollar you spend on your house for the entire process, that all can be deducted. So you're paying less capital gains, yeah.
Even taxes? You said even taxes?
No, it was like when you're buying.
Oh,
food,
Every air conditioning unit, every.
Water heater, every remodel.
But it's tough, you know,
Even if it's a $3,000 check, you keep it track. So that all gets deducted for this. But the best way is just reinvest it in the house.
Yeah. And tell your clients to sell their houses before this happens to them. And you can help.
Or you can just pay the tax.
Just one question,
You
so
know,
you can do residence to
That's what they-
residence to commercial to commercial.
Can't do residence,
Can't do residence.
cannot do residence. Not your,
See,
well, when you say residence, not your residential homestead. But if you have houses that are rental houses, you can go
House, yeah.
Rental.
rental property.
Investment,
Yeah,
Investment.
outside of your homestead.
Anything else? Again, sorry, my expert didn't show up.
But that was-
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is just to introduce you to
Right, make it clear.
an option here, and if something comes up, that
Tom, that's-
you got a
that's
tool that you
useful.
have.
Yeah.
But there also is a structured fee, because like the last time I did a 1031 exchange, we already had it outlined what it was gonna cost to sell it. It was already pre-determined, so I don't know if the state of Texas was controlling that, like title insurance.
I don't know the answer to that, I'm sorry, but yes, anybody else involved in this is gonna wanna charge a fee, it's just like any other business. Certainly banks get involved or investment